Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Sutton, and I am the Artistic Director of Pittance Chamber Music. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our organization, we call ourselves Pittance because we present chamber music concerts where we showcase the musicians who play in the pit at the Los Angeles Opera. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for tuning in for our first performance since the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. Our live concerts came to a halt 7 months ago, beginning with the cancellation of the program you're about to hear, Modern Beauty with Gloria Cheng. Because of everyone's desire to complete the program, we have remained committed to it, forging ahead in this new normal with these broadcasts as the goal. In a moment, I will introduce everyone, but before I do, I want to invite viewers who are interested in more information about upcoming programs, in particular the next two programs in this series. Please visit our Facebook page or website at pittancechambermusic.org. And if you enjoy this program, I ask you to please consider making a donation in support of future programs. Whatever you can give will be greatly appreciated. I am so honored to be here today with pianist Gloria Cheng, LA Opera bassoonist Judith Farmer, and Billy Childs, our featured composer for this program. It's so good to see all of you. Welcome.
Great to be here.
I'd like to retrace some steps with Gloria and Judy, going back over a year now, way back when we were in the planning stages of this program. We were contemplating a collection of contemporary works, which I had in mind to call Modern Beauty, recalling my experience of hearing works for the first time and discovering the beauty in them. And it's a wonderful coincidence that Gloria herself happens to be a modern beauty, as you will see. We were thinking about composers with whom Gloria had a personal connection. Not exactly a short list, but we were honing in on woodwind repertoire in particular, with 3 colleagues from the orchestra that were keen to participate. Judith Farmer, who's here with us today, clarinetist Dawn Foster, who will play on episode 2, and oboist Jennifer Cullinan, who will join us in episode 3. So Gloria and Judy, I remember that both of you, independent of one another, proposed doing Billy's sonata for bassoon and piano. And Gloria, I think you played this piece before, is that correct?
It's I played it with David Breidenthal, for whom it was written. And it's been very interesting to come back to it after, it's been at least 10 years, I think, maybe 15 since we...
I think closer to 20.
Closer to 20, oh gosh, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, thanks Judy. But yeah, coming back to it with fresh ears, fresh eyes, has been really very rewarding, really rewarding.
The reason I happen to know the date is at the same time David commissioned this piece from Billy. Billy also commissioned a piece from my husband, Gernot Wolfgang, and Gernot and I attended the performance where David performed both of these works. And I got a very nice letter from Billy afterwards saying, well, here's the music if you ever have time. And it's been sitting on my desk since, I think the letter is dated 2003. So maybe it's only 17 years. But anyway, it had been on my list of things to do for a long time. So when this opportunity came up to play the piece with Gloria, I, of course, jumped at the chance. And I'm so grateful that it happened.
Well, Billy, I love this piece. I mean, there's beautiful lyrical themes, and then there's this virtuosic element. It's just really a tour de force for the bassoon. So can you tell me what inspired you to write this? And,
Well, like Gloria said, it was a commission by David Breidenthal. Actually, we premiered it in Gindi Auditorium, I think, and it was in like April of 2003. And I had really actually started writing it in 2001. It took me a long time. And part of the reason was because I had other commissions that I was working on that kind of were set in place before. But also I found it difficult to write a sonata for a solo instrument that had a lower register. I was used to writing for, flute or violin, or the uh, the melodic phrases being above middle C predominantly. Um, so to write something that, because the piano accompaniment was going to be in kind of the range that the bassoon soloing was going to be in. So I had to figure out how to make it transparent, enough the accompaniment. But the accompaniment pretty dense anyway. So there's a
I'm
lot,
surprised to
there's a
hear
lot.
you.
I'm surprised to hear you refer to the piano part as an accompaniment.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of, I know, it's a very interactive piano part. It interacts. It's more my idea of accompaniment um, is interaction. Maybe that's why I don't accompany too many singers. But it's more like an interaction. And and that was challenging because there's a lot of counterpoint, there's a lot of textural stuff in the piano, and it challenged me. But the bassoon is a beautiful instrument, so it was not hard to conceive melodically once I got into it.
Um, One aspect of the piece that I notice, and also in other works that you've written, is how organically you blend elements of jazz and classical form.
Yeah, I mean, I studied classical composition in USC, and my teacher was Robert Lynn, who is himself an incredible composer. He passed away in '98. Um, but I also played with Freddie Hubbard and Joe Henderson and J.J. Johnson, so I kind of, I guess, I would attribute that organic merging of the disciplines to being exposed to a lot of different music. I grew up in a household where there was no discrimination. You might hear Bach on one day, and you might hear the Modern Jazz Quartet on another day, Barbara Streisand on another day, Joe Beam or Nat King Cole. It was all kind of like there was no judgment. And plus, also growing up on film music, especially the '60s and '70s when I grew up, where the film music composing was on such a high level, comparable to European classical composers, I think. When you had Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, Earl Hagen, Elmer Bernstein. So for that music, for the film music, it just had to be, it had to dramatically fit the scene. And whatever element you needed, whether it was jazz or European classical music or whatever, pop music, there was no judgment. So it had to merge. And a lot of times you'd get these marriages of genres in the film music. And that was hugely influential to me.
You have a remarkable history, a unique history of influences from all of those different kinds of music, which I think is what's unique about your writing and unique about you as an artist. Um, and I wanted to know if there's anything else that you wanted to say about the piece in particular, the way it's the form, or I noticed it's in two movements. Sometimes classical pieces are in three movements.
Yeah,
That's
often they are. I just felt like I only had two movements in me. They're too long movements. It's like, it's still like, I don't know, maybe a close to 20-minute piece. Um,
Yeah, I think Judy probably is grateful that there wasn't a third movement.
For a
yeah,
rather exhausting
yeah,
session
a
for
lot of
her.
long notes and held and crazy runs. I apologize. But yeah, I want to say that it's the first movement is written kind of as a sonata allegro form, pretty as strict as I'm going to get with that form. And the second movement doesn't really have kind of a form per se, more like a fantasy or something. But the first movement was inspired by William Walton's sonata for violin. where that also is a two movement piece. And the first movement is a sonata allegro form. The second movement is a theme and variations. It's a beautiful piece. And what I like about it and what I tried to do in this piece is that his piece it's not trying to be overly adventurous harmonically. It remains consonant and tonal. It's very structured in the form. So it's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but it's just beautiful music. And I tried to follow that lyricism and that attention to the form in the first movement, and the second movement is its own thing.
I wanted to ask everybody, it's been life as we know it has sort of radically changed since the pandemic, and not only the lockdowns, but the incredible ongoing stream of chaotic events. And I wanted to ask each one of you how this has affected you in your creative life, or any other perspectives that you have. Maybe starting with Gloria.
Well, I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to play again with colleagues, beloved colleagues, and play music by beloved composers. This series of our 3 episodes that was originally a concert to have been played and performed in April, was it? It's just been an opportunity to go out and rehearse and interact with other musicians, which has been so welcome. And it's like not tasting something for the longest time, and then you're reminded about how wonderful it is to play with people. It's something that, I don't have any other chamber music concerts on my schedule. In fact, I have very few concerts, period, coming up. They've all fallen away. So this has been a little oasis of getting to play music that I really enjoy with people that I really enjoy. I'm grateful for that.
Oh, Gloria, you kind of reminded me of how hard it was putting all of this together, because we actually had other repertoire. We were going to do the Ludoslavsky trio, the woodwind trio, and we couldn't figure out a way to safely rehearse and do that. And so we had to sit down and figure out how we were going to manage the program. And so we decided to salvage the pieces that were duos, essentially, and then to have you wear a mask, and then to have the woodwind players as far away as possible from you in the room. And it was really quite a journey, the whole thing from start to finish. But I'm so grateful that all of you were willing to do it. And I felt that same thing on the first day that I went in to hear you guys rehearse, was the joy of just hearing live music after so long. It was really, really wonderful. Judy, tell us about your experience.
Well, I just have to agree with everything Gloria said. As we've mentioned, originally this concert was supposed to take place early April, and I hope Gloria doesn't mind if I say we both started working on Billy's piece late November, just because it is such a challenging work, and it needed a lot of prep time. And the good news is we did start rehearsals quite early. I'm going to say early March. We got in 3 rehearsals, thank goodness, because that it was pretty much the last thing I did outside of my home. Was my last rehearsal with Gloria mid-March before everything got shut down. So I'm exceedingly grateful that I had this piece to prepare. It keeps me very challenged in all ways. So I was happy to have something to practice for, because so many of my friends and colleagues were just like, well, why should I practice? Why should I make reads? Why should I do any kind of preparation when I don't have anything to play? And sometimes, Billy, I'll confess, I cursed and said I could be watching a movie with my husband, but I have to practice now. And, but yeah, no, I'm exceedingly grateful to have had this challenge, and yeah, so I'm like Gloria. I just thank goodness I had this opportunity to play this wonderful piece. And
well, I'm so happy that it all worked out and we were able to do it. And Billy, I can't imagine, you must be someone who does a lot of traveling. I'm sure all of that came to a halt, and I'm sure you've been busy doing other stuff. So what have you been? What's your life been like this past summer?
It sucked, for a myriad of reasons, obviously the coronavirus, but also the racial uh, dynamics of this country, kind of falling apart at the seams, and as a black man, I feel it really acutely, you know, um, every time it affects me, every time I hear about like a peaceful protest being infiltrated by white militia groups, to make it seem like they're causing trouble. So you have that on top of the coronavirus, uh, or basically the coronavirus on top of that, because racism is part of the American fabric, and the coronavirus has just come against that backdrop. Uh, and then combined with the fires, the fires that actually I'm just now recuperating from the smoke inhalation from that. So it's really a tough year. I had been, and also, psychologically, you get depressed. I mean, I don't know anybody who is a working musician of excellent or any level, you know, who 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 looking at the situation, looking at the future, would not have wrestled with bouts of depression, because it's tough. When you're a musician, you are charged with communicating a message to a to the listener, um, and that when you can't do it in 3D, when you have to do it in 2D, like a computer screen versus like the visceral experience of like playing live, that's that's bad for both parties. Bad for the artist, it's bad for the listener. Um, so I was wrestling with that. I had a violin concerto that I completed this year for the incredible Rachel Barton Pine. And it was supposed to be premiered in July, but obviously that got canceled and they pushed it back, hopefully, to next July. Um, but writing that kept me busy. And also, I had recorded an album, a jazz album called Acceptance. And it was really interesting for me because I recorded it in January, and then I finished mixing it in March, early March, and just before everything shut down. But then the record label called me and said, okay, now let's do a photo shoot and let's do this. And they were planning as though things were just going to go on as usual, which I found actually therapeutic. It made me think that there are people who are just going to forge ahead, you know, and not give up and not fall into like, oh, the sky is falling, you know. I do think there's an end to this. I don't know what that end is, but I'm going off of the assumption that, everything before we arrive at a place where we can congregate is kind of throwaway. you know, it's it's kind of like, we just do it until we can actually be with each other.
I know it's a very gloomy thing to contemplate. I mean, at the moment there are no predictions of when that might happen, and so we're stuck in this limbo and trying to make do with how creative we can be in that little space,
Yeah.
But so well, thank you, Billy. I
Sorry to
appreciate
bring it
your
down.
sharing that.
Sorry to bring everybody down, but
Yeah, well, listen, I want to congratulate you on the violin concerto. I can't wait. That's very interesting to me, of course, being a violinist, and also your album. So you are continuing to make art
yeah,
in spite of everything, and
keep going forward.
yeah, absolutely, push on. And I did want to ask you as a final question, if I am a bassoonist and I want to play your bassoon sonata, where do I get music to that? Where can bassoon playing listeners find music to your pieces?
It will be up on my website, but for now you can go to my artist share page. It's
Okay.
/artist share. And you might have to do some navigating. It's like there's a section called scores we like, and you click on
Okay.
that, and then you'll find that and 3 other pieces. It's my artist share page.
Very good. Okay, well, I think maybe it's time to get to move on to our performance, but I wanted to thank each of you for being here today and sharing your insights about music and performing and composing and life with our online audience. And without further ado, let's listen to Billy Child's Sonata for Bassoon and Piano, performed by Judith Farmer and Gloria Cheng.